So we're getting ready for the big lift. It's 975 deep, and we want to leave space at the back for the fire blanket, the ceramic blanket to stick down. So the front of the preformed base is going to be here. Then we're going to have the brick, the stone arch, which will give us about 2 inches of the surface at the front. Okay, because we are not going onto a brick base, we're going onto a solid slab. The way we're approaching this is a little bit different from the instructions that have been given. Normally you bed it on the bricks with a mortar. Because we've got the slab already here, we're going to do the same. We're just going to screed out a kind of 10mm bed, sit the base on and just level it up nicely then. So I allowed for just 5-10mm of mortar. It's just a bed really to be able to level it off and get it nice and flat. Okay. And then we were pretty much ready to get the first piece of the jigsaw in. So using 2 small battens, we put those on there, which would help us slide it over, and then we could release those afterwards. The bottom section is about, I think, 65-70 kilo, so it's definitely a 2-person lift. And you kind of need that, especially with the concrete countertop not quite gone off. You can't really rest it on the edge, so it was a 1 lift, you know, in 1 movement. Then we just were able to tip it to one side and alternate that to remove the 2 battens. Then a bit of a wiggle to bed it down onto that mortar bed, and then just with a level checked to make sure we're flat. Then once we were happy with that, it was time to get the back section on. Now again, the back section is pretty heavy, so it's another 2-person lift. So this is some fireproof high temperature silicone, which is just going to seal between the 2 and just help them kind of stick whilst they're in place. And then once the structure is built over the top of them, they're all held in as well by the render. So just making sure we've got it the right way around, because we only really have 1 shot at this. And it's a bit of a weird thing to lift because the centre of gravity is kind of quite far back on it. So we just got it onto the centre of the base section, then using a small kind of slither of plywood, put that to the back, and then we were able to slide it across there without disturbing the silicone.
Forward a bit more. What? Come back to you.
So here's a look at the progress to date. We've got the countertop all in, and all of the formwork and the plywood has been removed from underneath. You can just about see that drip stop there. And then I'm removing the formwork from the sink. So the concrete counter on top is about 45mm thick, and then at the front it's about 1 inch thicker, just to give it a chunkier look. And we're just trying the sink just to make sure it fits in. So we finished the countertop yesterday, or I say finished, we cast it yesterday. By the evening I felt it was firm enough that we could take off the form, just so I can kind of round over a little bit more than what was there already. And then we got this base in the back in. That's purely because I had no one else to lift it up with today, or the next few days, so I had to make the most of having Dad here. So we've got them in place, and I think that was fine. Everything had gone off nice and hard already, and it will carry on kind of curing anyway. And this was only cast last week, this oven anyway, so it's probably best to get it in position and just let it kind of dry out naturally for a few more days. Fortunately, all the tiles came pre-cut in the circle. I checked that, we did the layout just to make sure, and they all go in there nicely. We moved those to the floor in the pattern that they need to be laid. So it's getting pretty dark again, so we may have to pick this up in the morning, but it seems to be going in alright. I'm only bedding them on of probably about 3 or 4mm. I'm hoping that's going to be fine, especially with the fireproof base. main problem is, from what I've read, is the peel, which you get your pizza with, catching the edges of the brick, which is quite often why people do a herringbone diagonal. These came pre-cut, so we'll just work with what we got, but I'd rather have the lip, if there is any at all, the other way around, so we're kind of scooping over them fine. Done the best I can. It's actually quite helpful having that light there, because we can see kind of any stepping, any shadows. And if there are any very, very slight steps, they're going away from me. So that if I take the peel, it's not going to catch on anything, apart from that one. I'm actually going to crack on and get the front 2/4 on as well, and then the whole thing will be set up, and I can leave it for the 3 or 4 days that we're away, and come back next week, and then we can look at insulate, render, fire it up, and hopefully it's going to be ready for this big party in 10 days time. I'm not sure this was a good idea. Quite clearly a 2-person job. Okay, it's in. It's not a perfectly snug fit, because I guess they're just fairly random moulds to an extent. They're not perfectly factory made, but given there's a good wedge of silicone, like good fat bead of silicone in between, hopefully that's sealed it off. Yeah, I'm not quite sure I'm going to be able to do much in there once the front's on. Oh. Well, it's taking shape. I'm going to get a chair just so I can check that T. Nick, the guy who makes these, said that that's the key part, to make sure there's good seal there, and then we can obviously point anything that's left afterwards. So what we've got is the dome underneath, which is the perlite preformed dome that we purchased. Did away with the brick arch that came with it and decided to use the limestone from the house. So we built that whole kind of arch at the front using the same form that we did at the bottom for the bottom arch. And what we're deciding on now is just whether we carry on a course of stone along the bottom of the dome, just to kind of give it a bit of a frame, really, to frame it all, and then just render down to it. Then there's like a vapor barrier of foil. That kind of helps, I think, with the way it dries out, just to make sure there's less chance of cracking. Then there's the ceramic insulation, which is going to hold all the heat in, especially for like overnight cooks, if we're doing a slow roast or whatever overnight. Then there's some mesh, and that kind of holds all of the all the insulation down tight, and we twisted that down to some masonry nails down at the bottom. So here's the arch, and we had a little bit of trouble finding the right stones, and we've ended up with fairly thick mortar gaps, but I think it's going to be strong enough. We've got some sharp sand in that mix as well, so it should be alright. Love this keystone in the middle, and then the rest kind of worked around that timber frame. So what I'm going to do is, we've got space here for 2 bricks, 2 of the reclaimed bricks, which ties it in with the bottom base part, and then we've got some of the limestone flags that we used in the patio. We're going to do kind of a little lip that comes around the side here, and that'll just kind of give us a little bit of a ledge to serve and pull out. It hasn't got so much of a drop. And then of course we've got all this to polish, all the concrete to polish. And then the last little change we made is the kit came with a 5-inch kind of vitreous enamel flue, and it actually has a damper in it as well, which is quite good for slow cooking overnight. But it just didn't look right, and I could have tried to clad around it with stone or try and render. But what we've done is gone for a chimney pot, so we've done away with that 5-inch. Got a full-size chimney pot on top, but it does work much better because it's the same sort of buff colour as the stone. And we're going to render up flush to that, so it should give it a nice sort of chunky look and a little bit, you know, a bit more traditional than using a metal, you know, visible metal flue. I'm just going to tighten up all this mesh now, and then we're going to have a go at the rendering. I've never rendered a flat surface, so let alone a sphere like this. It's working. I can't believe it. I feel like I know what I'm doing, but I don't. It's obviously only the first scratch coat, so just trying to get it as smooth as I can. We'll kind of get the shape as much as I can, and then we'll scratch it, and then probably in a day or two I'll be able to put that final coat on. But it's beginning to look like a pizza oven now. Scratch coat's on. It's not scratched yet. I think I might leave it a little while and then just go over it with a couple of nails, a bit of wood. But the shape is there, and the shape's looking really good, so really chuffed with it. And look what else just arrived. And hopefully this will be the right size that it will go into the cupboards underneath. It's aluminium anyway, so. So it's the next morning, and I'm going to try and get the final coat of render on. Fortunately, I found we were going to paint it. I looked at it using acrylic renders, like a bit like K-Ren, because they'd be flexible, but I think with the additives in this should be okay. I was going to use lime in here as well, but the waterproofer that I was using said it couldn't be used with lime, and it kind of replaced it, so we'll soon see. We can always render it again. We were going to paint it, but I found an old tin of buff cement dye in the shed, so I've thrown that in there. Can't hurt. So we're going to get this on, I think probably 10-12mm thick, and hopefully that should be it. We had a tiny little fire in here this morning just to dry it off, and then we'll build those up over the next few days. Oh look, it's coming out the chimney. Oh, so we've also got the rest of that glass fibre in there, which hopefully should stop cracks. Slap it on. Oh, I'll tell you what we need to do. Wet this down. Well, it might just help the cement stick. On we go. This trowel that came in a plastering set is working out to be the easiest thing. I can't remember what it says. Trowel, edge trowel, a fine trowel or something. It's quite flexible, it means I can get right around the back. And to polish up the surface as best I can with that seems to be much better than trying to do it with a normal plastering trowel. It's a bit fiddly up here, so I'm just using a pointing trowel to get around there. But I bought just the normal cast sponges, or grouting sponges, so hopefully when this goes off a little bit more, I'll kind of smooth it out even more. And obviously the buff on the back for the render is different from the pointing on the stonework, so I want to make sure I've got like a defining line and I'm not blending the two. I'm going to use paintbrush along the bottom just so I can get it clean away from those stones. Still a little bit worried that that buff colour is going to kind of bleed into the bit below, but hopefully over time things will just soften a bit. So there we go, it's looking good, isn't it? Let me know what you think in the comments below. The next video is going to be all about finishing that countertop. We've got some diamond grinding discs, I'm polishing it down to get a really nice smooth sort of satin finish, and there might even be a pizza in it by the end of the next video. So stay tuned for the next one, and remember to subscribe and like if you enjoyed the video, and remember, if you can, do it yourself, and we'll see you in the next one.